Welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast, your source for information on hunting, fishing, and all of your outdoor passions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to our hearts here at SCHEELS, and that's hunting clothing. We pride ourselves on having a great variety of clothing at a variety of different price points, and also having an exclusive line, which is our SCHEELS Outfitters products. With us today is Brandon Stone, who's played an integral part in the research and development of these products. Thank you for joining us today, Brandon.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with SCHEELS and the role you play?
Well, I started with SCHEELS back in 1998 as a kid fresh out of the University of Iowa and needed a job. And haven't looked back since. So started on the floor in Iowa City, worked as a shop manager and then an assistant store leader, and then transitioned to the corporate office as the hunting clothing line leader in 2006.
Okay. Yeah, it seems to be that's kind of the path a lot of people take here at SCHEELS. You know, you just really have a passion for hunting and fishing, and then start out working sales at the floor and then kind of move your way up. So how did you develop a passion for the outdoors and hunting?
Well, I don't know. When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends that hunted a lot, and I was fortunate to have close family members that were into hunting. And living in the country really helps. I grew up out on a farm, kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it was just something we did. Especially when I was in high school, we hunted every day. So it was great, and that kind of got me started in it, and never really looked back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from because. I grew up in a town of 870 people, graduating class of 32. There was literally nothing else to do besides, the outdoors. So picked up a bow and just kind of got started from there. So that's cool. So how did the SCHEELS Outfitters Big Game Collection come to be?
Well, it was kind of like just came from a need of a couple of items that when First Light exited the retail space and went direct to consumer, we'd built a really big following in our stores with our associates and our customers for wool base layer. And when we stopped doing business with First Light, we needed to fill that void, and there wasn't a branded product available in those similar weights or with the extensive variety of things that we'd been selling so well in the past. So we just decided we'd have to go out and make it ourselves. Well, once we got that figured out, it was like, wow, we can't just sell a couple of base layer items here. We should probably add a couple things to it so we can merchandise it on the floor as like a collection. And one thing led to another, and that's where we're at today. So we just keep growing it a little bit by bit, season after season. And, from that, small need has developed into this, program that's super popular with our stores and our customers and our experts alike.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. You said it started out with a wool collection. How many pieces were there in that initial start?
Well, we really just need the wool base layer. So a couple weights of tops and a couple weights of bottoms. And then once we decided that we needed those pieces, it was like, well, if we're going to have that, then we should have some other stuff to go along with it. And at the same time, we started our relationship with Vail Camouflage, and it was like, well, we need some more outerwear and mid-layer pieces. So we wanted to have enough of that together to have a unique pattern of our own. So when we put it out on the floor, it all merchandised together. So it's just kind of like one thing kind of led to another. And when we started out, we thought we were going to have 6 or 8 pieces, and it turned out to be a dozen. So. Nice.
So we have basically a full layering system out there now, don't we?
Yeah, now we go skin to shell. And as of this year, we launched a couple of new rainwear pieces in the verdant pattern. So now we can outfit customers from next to skin all the way through outerwear, including rainwear and insulated items that we've had from the past couple of seasons. So yeah, pretty much everything that you would need in there.
Very cool. Can you dive in a little bit into how you guys developed the pattern with Vail?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting process. They have obviously a lot of technology and capabilities to make it how we want. Well, one thing that we knew for sure is we wanted to be unique in the market. And, being in the upper Midwest, there's certain seasonalities to camouflage. Really, I wanted to make sure that it was something that, number one, customers would recognize it as, unique to SCHEELS. And number two, that it would be applicable across all kinds of different markets in the upper Midwest. So, born on the uniqueness and the, just the ability to have something that was, versatile enough that you could use it just about anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, personally, I love the versatility of the SCHEELS Outfitters line. The original West River, it's kind of got a lighter pattern to it, and it seems like it really blends in really well. And then we've got our Verdant, which is the green pattern that we just came out with. That's super good in like the turkey woods or early season bow hunting and stuff. But just the macro patterns looks really good and blends in well.
Yeah, the wild thing with that was we never really intended to have two camo patterns. It was one of those things where we launched West River, and then the feedback that we got from associates and consumers were like, wow, we want something that similar for the spring, to your point, for spring turkey. And then stores in the West are like, hey, we want something that's, more applicable in the, in the Western markets and the greener treat areas, so it was like, okay, well, we can start that. And then one thing led to another, and bam, all of a sudden we have another camo pattern. And again, it wasn't really our intention, but the success of the one allowed us to build, not only new items, but also add the additional pattern to the mix, a year later.
Yeah, I mean, the two patterns really packs a nice 1-2 punch for versatility there. Can you dive in a little bit into the research and development process? I mean, I'm assuming that we can, since it's our signature line of clothing, we can control every aspect of the product, can't we?
Oh yeah, from the beginning stages of materialization, like what fabrics and zippers and buttons, like pretty much all of that is available for us to pick and on our own. So, a lot of it comes from what works at retail for us, in our own line and in other brands. It really starts like, what styles do we need? We determine like how many jackets do we need? Okay, so if we need jackets, some with hoods, some without hoods, some midweight ones, some heavyweight ones. So, part of it is just like, where are the needs at in the marketplace, and where do we think our customers are going to respond positively to like either additional item or a new item? And then from there we go into the design part of it, and it's pretty much just starting with initial prototypes, and it evolves from there. When we get to the point where we have enough of an idea of where we think it's going to line up with the rest of the line, and if we're addressing most of the needs that we think we are, we'll actually build a complete size run, typically like medium through 2 or 3X, so we can get it on enough people, experts around SCHEELS, that we can use, and we get them on them and in the field, even if it's like early season where maybe it's a hunting item and they're even wearing it fishing, or they're taking insulated item ice fishing, so like all of that, product development comes in with people, more hands touching it, so we can get their feedback, like Jason Mitchell is a, associate of ours. So like we use his feedback on new items. Lots of times we'll send it to him because he spends a lot of time in the field. So we get feedback from, experts from all over SCHEELS, both inside and outside the company to, give us feedback on, how the development process is going. And then as that, happens, we're continually making changes with the designers and re-prototyping those items so we can get them back out in the field again.
Mm-hmm. So from the original Big Game collection, when we started diving into the outerwear, what sort of changes were made from that start to where we are now?
Well, a lot of it, like the base items haven't changed that much, but it's like there's small things that we change with like directional usage of the zippers, the zipper flaps on some items, like we've had cases where like on the Antler River, we reversed the flap on the zipper for the pocket because we had it backwards the first time. It made it harder to get it in there, your hands in there, especially like in bow hunting situations. You want to make sure that you can get a gloved hand in your pocket. And some of the zippers were a little bit tighter than what we would have liked them after we get a lot of field use in it. So once you get the base of the design done, it usually comes down to tweaking small details like that with cuffs and zippers and buttons and all of those little things to make sure that, there's not something in there that's going to be, like detrimental to the usage of that item in the field. So we try to, always, like discipline ourselves to make sure we have enough people looking at it that we don't have those things, but things happen, and it's like, oh man, really wish we would have fixed that the first time, so then the second go around, we have it updated. And, most customers or associates would never know most of the time when we make those little tweaks, because it's just from one production run to the next. So it's not like we're changing the entire style, but we're just continually evolving small little details.
Yeah, that's the beauty of being able to, get it into the hands of people that are actually hunting with it and being able to get that feedback quickly.
Yeah, and really that's, like how some of our best testers, they kind of evolve. Like the ones that we get the most, like honest feedback from are the ones that we keep going back to, because even lots of times, you don't want to hear that feedback, but we have to have it. Mm-hmm. So like if we don't get any feedback, then it's like, well, maybe we'll try somebody else the next time, and even, it comes down to even fit, like we do a lot of fitting here in the office. So we're like always running around trying to find the same fit models. So we make sure that we're trying to address the size runs to fit like most customers. Cause now that big game collection and key items, it runs extra small to 4X, including some talls. So that's part of the feedback that we've got is like, well, we need more sizes for this or that. So we're always continually trying to update that. So we make sure that we're, able to outfit the most customers that we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with the big game collection, we have, it's a great piece, but generally it's at a really good price too. Like, can you explain the process to being able to price these at a really good point?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we really work hard at, because that's part of the success of the, developing the Outfitter brand is, driving performance and value. And one of the ways that we're able to do that is like, we don't go really wild on promoting it, like heavily discounting it, like some of our competitors do with their, house brands. Like we have a set retail price for it, and we don't deviate for that, except for like exceptional reasons. Like right now we're running the big game ad, so we'll run it on sale for that. But we don't play like a big, like high-low game, like there's items like Antler River where we could go out at $199 for that. It would command that kind of retail price point, but then we would be running it on sale all the time at like $149, $129. And we don't really feel like we need to do that, because the product performance and the value is there. So we're not going to play those kind of games to the retail. We want to have it at the best price possible, all the time, because we want people to come back to those items again and again and again. And so we just don't do that, so like we've been able to source these items with the best possible components we can at those retail prices. And I think that's why our customers like the items so much, because they're getting so much value in those items compared to other, retail brands.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So while we're running this podcast, in November, it's late season. Late season's here. Can you walk us through a complete recommendation for a layering system if you're out in the field right now?
Oh, sure. And again, this is like my own personal sort of thing. Like everybody's got their own thing when it comes to layering and how many layers they like to wear. But, for late season, base layer is a key. You have to have a good next to skin layer. And personally, I like to wear something that's, like some people will call it silk weight or performance rate, that really lightweight synthetic. I like it on the bottom more than I am on the top, but like I'd like to wear like that next to skin performance layer on the bottom, then a heavier weight wool over top of that if it's going to be really, really cold, and then go into like whatever hunting pant you like, and then your outerwear depending on the conditions. But the key to building the system though is to make sure that you're not impacting the breathability. I think that's one mistake that a lot of people make. And I do a lot of bird hunting, so it's a lot of physical activity, and you're moving a lot. And the items that you're going to use for late season for that obviously are a lot different than what you would for big game. But what it does teach you is that you got to have breathability. Like if you're hiking in the stand a great distance, you don't want to be wearing a couple like windproof layers on your outer layers as you're traveling to the stand, because you're going to get all sweated up. And when you sit down, the first thing you're going to feel is that dampness on your body, and you're going to feel chilled immediately. So you want to make sure that your mid layer and the layers close to your skin are going to breathe really, really well. So when you get to the point where you're going to put on your outerwear, that you're not damp. That's really the most critical part. So having that next to skin layer that's going to pull the moisture off your body is important. But then it's also important that your next layer is also breathable, and that's where items like our Churchill Merino is great for that, because the Merino breathes really nice and it's super warm. Or like the Muscle Shell hoodie, that's probably my favorite non-wool item in the line. It's like, if you find me on the weekend wearing a piece of camo anywhere other than in the field, it's going to be that piece, because I just love that piece so much, because it's not super thick and it breathes really well and it just layers really, really nicely. So you can do a lot of activity and then put something over top of that piece to get you that way. And I think that, one of the items that everybody loves is a vest, right? I mean, I have a closet full of them, but one of the mistakes I think some people make is like the Boundary vest or the Antler River vest. Those have membranes in them, so they don't breathe. I mean, they're designed to cut the wind. So you do all this layering, and then you put a layer vest that doesn't breathe super well, and then a jacket over top of that, and then hike into the stand. Well, your core is not going to be able to breathe when you're wearing, both those pieces of outerwear over top of each other. And I think that's the one thing that people need to avoid the most, is like stacking, windproof layers on top of themselves as you're going to be moving into the stand for late season hunting. You're better off being a little cold as you're going in.
Yeah. So in that situation, do you recommend doing your base layer and then your vest and then just packing in your jacket?
Yeah. That's exactly what I think. Like, especially when you get to items like the Antler River jacket or the Highwood jacket, I would wear that vest over top of your base layers or your mid layer, and then use that to keep your core warm as you're going into the field. Mm-hmm. And then once you get in the stand, if it's super cold, you just throw the jacket on over top of it, or maybe you peel the vest off and then put the jacket on.
Yep. I mean, that makes perfect sense, because you got your vest that isn't breathable. That's gonna keep your core temperature warm. But then you've got like your arms and your extremities that are moving and sweating. There you just have your base layer, so then you can kind of dump some of that moisture and temperature.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things from like bird hunting that I think is like super applicable to big game hunting, is like there's a lot of times in North Dakota where you're bird hunting and it's like in the 20s, but you're wearing a really breathable mid layer and then a windproof vest over top of that, and then like your whatever game vest that you're using. And that's pretty much like perfect for, that, high activity walking around. You don't need all of those windproof layers. And then, but that's probably the mistake that most hunters make, is like they get all sweated up, wearing too much of that stuff into the stand, and then you're just cold.
Mm-hmm. So one thing you touched on a little bit was, as one of your favorite pieces, was wool, and we are just getting a new wool collection into our stores. Can you touch a little bit on that and why wool is one of your favorite lines?
Wool is a great material to build hunting garments from, because there's a couple of properties of wool that work really well with people that are in the field a lot. One is like the warmth to weight ratio is really good. And also, like, if you get it wet, wool will still keep you warm. If you're wearing a synthetic anything and it gets wet, its properties to keep you warm go away. And that doesn't happen with wool. So that's pretty awesome. And then wool is also naturally antimicrobial. So it's really nice, as we talk about scent a lot. And while it doesn't keep the odors that you create away, if you're going to wear a garment like repeatedly on a hunt where you're not washing your stuff all the time, wool has awesome properties for that, because the nature of wool doesn't allow the bacteria that causes odor to grow on it. So it doesn't stink if you wear it over and over and over again, which, all of us are guilty of when we're not have access to wash our hunting apparel all the time. So that's why wool is so awesome for hunting. And I think that most people, it's probably underappreciated, because people think like the old school days, like, oh man, it's so itchy and I don't want it next to my skin, but it's really not. Like high quality merino is great to wear next to your skin. And now, because we've had so much success with that, we're launching wool outerwear, which is the fleece that we're using is a wool blend. And the reason we do the blendedness is, one, that it allows us to create more loft in it. So It's going to be super warm. It's windproof, and our camo pattern just prints awesome on it too, which is pretty nice because it's going to look really cool.
That's great. What sort of pieces are going to be offered in the wool?
We have a jacket, a hooded jacket, and then a bib, a pant, and which those silhouettes we've had before in the line. We updated them a little bit, but our customers will be pretty familiar with those when they see them. And then new for this year, we've added a hooded pullover, designed specifically for tree stand hunting and archers that don't want a lot of zippers in the way. It's got a great kangaroo pocket on it, so to keep your hands warm. And it's almost got it's sort of like a built-in hand warmer. It's got an internal cuff on it. So if you wanted to go gloveless, it helps hold some heat in there for the bow hunter. And I think that it's going to be received really, really well. We've had a few samples around here for a while now, and everybody's anxious for them to arrive in stores.
Yeah, great. I mean, I'm anxious too. That's I really haven't had a lot of wool in my collection, so I'm definitely going to have to give that a try. Is there anything in the works that you can spill the beans on a little bit, or is that going to be a pretty kept secret?
We're not talking about anything yet. Yes, we have a lot of things in the works, but we're not talking about them yet. We got to keep people on their toes, be anxious for the new things to come. But there are, every year we like to have at least one or two new things that we're working on, and we got some pretty exciting stuff coming for next year that some of them may not be related to big game, but it's we got a lot of time and effort in these, so we're keeping them pretty close to the old vest right now because we don't want people to be sneaking up on our cool new ideas. So,
ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a few different types of hunting out there that are not big game. So keep your eyes out for that.
We're pretty excited about this launch. So a year from now, we'll be having another podcast talking about the new stuff. So
there we go. Perfect. So I mean, I could tell that you spend a lot of time in the field hunting, doing research, bringing this back. Do you have a favorite hunting memory?
Oh wow, I got a lot of them. Wow. So in North Dakota, I call it the old days. So back in 06, 07, you had to draw a prairie chicken tag. You remember that? We used to have
I do not remember.
We used to have a prairie chicken
Minnesota,
tag
so
in North Dakota. There's two areas where you can hunt prairie chickens in North Dakota. And you used to have to apply, getting a deer tag. And when I first moved to North Dakota, it was oh man, I got to get that. So I kept applying. I drew that prairie chicken tag one year, and my son and I spent, 3 weekends in a row, rummaging around in the sand hills looking for these dang prairie chickens. And we finally did find them one day. Of course, they were all flushing from the roost as we were walking to the truck at dark. It was the only glimpse that we caught of them. But it was just a great time because I was new to North Dakota, and this was something that was completely different for me. And it was just a lot of fun. And man, I've had most of them either center around dogs or kids, but I have been fortunate enough to go on some big game hunts, and I just really enjoy them. I really like hunting in the West. That's what, when I was a kid, I was just man, if I could live in Wyoming, that's where I would be. I almost went to the University of Wyoming. I had relatives that lived there, and I just love being in the West. So that's I just got back from Wyoming 2 weeks ago. We were out chasing antelope, and that's probably my favorite thing to do. It's being out in the West and glassing for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I just started hunting out in the West probably 3 or 4 years ago. Grew up in Minnesota, trees all over the place, and to try that open hunting, it's just a completely different train of thought and mindset, and it's quite a challenge. It's super fun. So can you tell us a little bit how that antelope hunt went?
Oh, it was a good time. Yeah, it was super hot. It was in the middle 90s, which, do you think for a rifle hunt, that's not usually what you would think, but it was in the middle 90s every day we were there, which made it kind of interesting, and really got to put the new Verdant items to the test. The new lightweight pant was awesome. I wore it 3 days in a row just to see how it was going to hold up, and I couldn't have been more impressed with it. For $79, there's a lot of $150 hunting pants that aren't that nice. So.
Yeah. There's two people here that are on the lightweight Verdant train because I used those same pants when I was on my mule deer hunt in in the Badlands this, early September. And I love how it had, a little bit of extra padding and protection in like the knees, but then there was a little more breathable in your high sweat areas. One of my favorite parts is just the little button. And just because it's reinforced, I've had so many buttons fall off and just pockets in the right places. And I was, on my hands and knees looking for blood when I was trailing that muley, like more time than I would like to on my hands and knees on that scoria rock. And, it held up really well. So.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that some of the feedback we got from associates when we first got them in stores they're like, oh, it's going to be too loud. And like when you feel it on the floor, the fabric seems like it would make a little bit of noise. But like when you put it on and wear it around, it's as quiet as any other hunting pant I got, which I think is probably the most surprising thing for me was that it really didn't make a whole bunch of noise. And the addition of the little hook for like the gaiter on your boot to attach the pant, that thing's a game changer. And we're actually bringing that into some of our upland pants for next season, just because it's been so effective on that lightweight hunting pant. It's just so nice. When it's really hot like that, I'm a big proponent of wearing gaiters, but if you can avoid wearing another layer over top of a layer when it's like 95 degrees, that's one area where you can cut something out and it makes you just so much more comfortable in the field. Mm-hmm. So it was a good time. We had a great time and did get an antelope. It wasn't necessarily the one I was hunting for, but it was, we saw a pile of them. I just love that country so much.
Mm-hmm. So it was, what was it, later in the antelope season?
Yeah, we decided because we hadn't been in this area before, so we put in for both deer tags and antelope tags, and we drew both. So we hunted the end of the antelope season and the beginning of the deer season, which ended up being the absolute worst time to hunt either one of them because the antelope they were super skittish and the deer were not moving at all because it was so hot. So they were completely nocturnal. So it was kind of interesting. Had we had to do it again, we could probably go back to this area at some point. It'll be a one or the other deal. We'll either hunt deer a little bit later or antelope a little bit earlier, but live and learn, man. That's, why we do it, like if you don't learn something every time you do one of these things, I suppose we wouldn't do it again, but.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Were like the fires in Colorado affecting your area at all?
Yeah. So we were like in southeast Wyoming. So like there was a couple of days when the wind blew pretty hard from the south and east of where we were at. And it was pretty hazy glassing in the mornings. It was pretty tough. Like you could tell that if it was a buck or a doe, but beyond that, if it was any distance, it was way too hazy to be able to tell one way or another. But boy, you could tell when the wind shifted direction because all of a sudden it would just like clear up.
Huh,
and we had two mornings that were like that where it was super smoky because we're probably only like 100 miles north of Cheyenne or so. So like all of those fires that were burning down there in Colorado were affecting that area with pretty heavy haze.
Okay. Was it super dry where you were at too then?
Oh, it was crazy. When we were there, it hadn't rained since the middle of June.
Wow.
So I'm sure that has some effect on the antelope for sure, but it was certainly very, very, very dry. I feel for all those ranchers down there. They're really struggling right now for some moisture.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. Boy, I bet if you had quite a bit of access to private land with a bunch of watering tanks, you'd have probably been into some pretty good hunting at that time.
Yeah, ironically, we did. We had, lots of private land to hunt, but we ended up killing both of our antelope on state land. Huh. It was just like how it worked out, like give the old kudos to the Onyx, like it's crazy that tool that is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're going out Western hunting and you're not using Onyx, I mean, you're restricting yourself. Just the ability to know where public and private land is a total game changer.
Yeah, that was the funny thing for us is the one that my partner Ramsey shot. We were like, it was right over the fence from this big chunk of private land we had to hunt. And we'd seen antelope on there the first day we were there. I was like, so we looked at it like, oh, well, this is like state of the Wyoming land. So we're good over here. And sure enough, 3 days later, he ends up shooting the antelope on that piece of ground that was right over the fence from the private land we could hunt.
Very cool. So one thing we haven't really talked about is the fishing line of SCHEELS Outfitters clothing. What do we have all in that lineup?
Well, now, similar to big game, we're delivering like mostly like skin to shell and fishing. So we do lots of performance outerwear. Rainwear has been a big component for us in the SCHEELS Outfitter line for like basically eternity. We've always done fishing rainwear, so we have a couple of key pieces there. And then from there, now we've really got into sportswear, so sun protection at all different kinds of levels, both knits and wovens. And again, we're delivering products at retail price points that nobody can touch. Our performance for value is untouchable in the market. Like our fishing shirts could easily retail with a brand for between $75 and $100, and we're selling them for $50 or less.
Very cool.
It's really cool because we got awesome feedback from our customers on the fishing shirts, both on fit and in function, and it's been fun to watch that grow.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of having a signature line is, if someone reaches out to us in the store or on Facebook or Instagram, like that comment can have an impact and it can change the way that we make our products.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does, like in the fishing shirts, we get a lot of great comments from our customers about how they fit. And obviously I'm not a small human, so they're probably like on the larger side of the size scale. But, we have also gotten feedback from the stores that, like the rest of the size run is probably a little bit too big. So like for next spring, we've regraded all the sizing on the fishing shirts for next year. So everything from like XL and up is going to remain the same. And everything from XL and down is got completely regraded. And we spent a lot of time adjusting the fit on those so they fit, the medium, large, a little bit better. So it's not just the materialization. It's also like we put a lot of time and energy into the fit of these items too.
Perfect. Well, that was a ton of great information. I greatly appreciate your time and
anytime.
Diving into everything that makes up the big game collection and really how it came to be.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, like I said, like we never thought that it was going to be what it is today. That honestly, it wasn't our intention, just because frankly, it's a lot of extra work. But now that we've got it going, like we want to just keep, feeding the beast, so to speak, and keep changing things up and redeveloping them. And it's been a lot of fun to watch it and to get all the positive feedback from our experts in the field and from our customers alike.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Again, thank you for your time, Brandon. If anyone has questions on this, feel free to reach out in the comments or on social media, on Facebook or Instagram at SCHEELS Outdoors. And with that, I guess we'll wrap this up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the SCHEELS Outdoors Podcast. Stay tuned for future segments and visit our social media pages, SCHEELS Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates.